This podcast is produced by AudioFi. This is the Prevail Point podcast with author, motivational speaker, and entrepreneur Jinary Arce-Cotto, a show dedicated to offering practical, real-life pointers on how to live a life of victory. Here's your host, Jinary.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited that you have tuned into the podcast, The Prevail Point, with your host, Jinary Arce-Cotto, the author of Prevail, The Process of Overcoming. I'm excited because today is going to be the best day of your life. Today, you are going to overcome, and today, you will prevail. I promise you, after you listen and you're done with listening to this podcast, you're going to have a total different outlook on life. And you're going to be able to say, wow, that was the key. That was the portion that I was missing in order for me to get to the next level of my life. So listen to me. I'm excited because we're also working on doing a YouTube channel. We're also working on some other projects in order to reach other people, in order to reach a different population of people. So we're doing everything possible so that you can hear the word of God and so that you can understand that it's going to be okay as well. So I'm excited to have this platform. I'm excited that you are listening to me today. And I understood one thing. I didn't understand where God was taking me. Sometimes I still don't understand where God is taking me. But one thing I know is that He chose you to listen to this podcast today. Only I can reach you. And maybe there are other people that cannot reach you, but God put you in my path so that you could listen and so that you can understand that it's going to be okay. So that you can understand that there is so much more for your life. There is so much more that you can accomplish. There is so much more for you that God has planted in your heart that you think is coming from you, but in reality, it's coming from God. So all those dreams, all those goals that are in your heart that sound crazy, that maybe when you share it with the wrong person, they are telling you that that's never going to happen. But I tell you, if you share it with the right people, they're going to encourage you. They're going to get you to the level where you need to be. It's very important for you to realize that you need to surround yourself with the right people. So I'm glad that you turned down the podcast wherever you're listening to it today, whether it's in YouTube. This is going to be posted there soon. We'll let you know when those things happen. But I'll let you know that today is going to change your life. I promise you. Once you're done with this podcast, you're going to say, wow, that is the missing link. That is the missing link. So how many of us know that this world needs hope? This world needs peace. This world needs love. Wow. Especially with what we're going on today, right? We are the epicenter of what's happening with the pandemic. But on top of that, there's some new things that are going on with the protest. And the protest, when it's not violent, is amazing. It's beautiful. I think a lot of things change when people protest and stand up. But with the looting and the violence, it's just so horrible to see how many people are dying on both sides of the arena. And I pray for those families that are going through really troubling times. I pray that they can understand that justice will be made somehow, some way. But I want to let you know this. In Isaiah 40:31, it says, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint." I got to encourage you today that you cannot quit. There's a saying that says, quitters will never win and winners will never quit. You cannot quit because God made you a winner before the foundations of this world. And you may ask, well, I don't feel like a winner. You may say, well, I don't understand. I don't know what I'm going through right now. But I got to encourage you and tell you, you are a winner. You were made for greatness. Pain is temporary, but quitting is forever. Oh, man, that is deep. Pain is temporary, but quitting is forever. And we are all winners in God's eyes. And we need to understand that the passion that God has given us to do whatever it is that God has created you to do, and you know what that is. You know what's the task. You know what it is that you have to do to get to the next level in your life. You know the changes you have to make in your life. You know the different relationships you have to make or different relationships you have to leave. You know what you need to do. You know that passion that you have in your heart, what keeps you up at night, where you can't sleep because you have to make a difference. You know, what made me write this book, and I spoke about this before, was that I was angry because I needed my mother to write this book and not die before this happened. Not that she's gonna die, thank God she's alive. And I pray every single day that God gives her health, that God gives her the willingness to continue on in her ministry, because she's doing a fabulous thing. But I pray for you to understand that your time is not over yet. God already laid out a plan for you in the Word of God. And that's what sometimes we don't understand. So you see, this is what's happening in this world that we're living in right now. Whatever race you are, wherever you come from, whether you're white, you're black, yellow, green, whatever it is that you are, you need to understand one thing, is that God created you for greatness. He created you to make a change. He created you to do something different in His eyes. He laid out a plan. And what happens is that a lot of times we have to be independent in a lot of things that we do. We have to take that word independent and say, you know, I can't depend on nobody if I want to get it done. If I want to achieve something, I have to do it. If I want to do it, I have to do it, right? It's that ringing, that renouncing word in your mind. I have to do it. And it's okay. There's a lot of times that God calls you to do something. And yes, you have to get up. You have to sacrifice. You have to put in the work. You have to put in the countless hours so that you could get it done. But you got to realize one thing, that independence does not transfer over to God. You still have to depend on God. You still have to realize that you cannot do it without Him. There was a time in my life where I was being extremely successful in the career that I had chosen. And I had a few businesses and I was doing extremely well. And I started relying on my own strengths. And yeah, I had to educate myself. And yeah, I had to put in the 12 hours, the 14 hours of work a day to get what I needed to get. I was in a very desperate state. I was completely in debt. I was homeless. First, I was living with my sister. Then I was living with my mom. I was homeless. I had a 2 to a 3-year-old child at the time. And I didn't know what to do. I had a step in corporate America, and I spoke about this last week. But what happened was that I was so eager to win that I did whatever it took. And I forgot that the reason I was winning was because of God's grace and favor. Now, I'm not diminishing all of the situations that I had to go through and all the work I had to put in to be successful. But what I did diminish was that I stopped depending on God. I started depending on my own will and my own attitude of I could do this on my own. And I remember one day sitting down in my office and not being as successful as I have been the last 2 years. And God reminded me, hey, don't forget that yes, you're getting every deal. That yes, you're going to every president's club. You're winning every reward. But don't forget that the grace and favor of God comes from me. And I was like, wow, oh my God, I'm sorry, God. I know that the favor of God and the grace of God comes from you. That when I walk into that appointment, I need to pray before I go in. That when I leave, I need to thank you. That when I wake up in the morning, I need to thank God that I could breathe. That I have another chance to achieve my dreams and goals. Whenever I got to whatever place I have been in at that present time, I needed to thank God for it. You know, because God had allowed that to happen. And sometimes we become so independent of people around us that we take that same independence and translate it in the relationship that we have with God. And we need to realize, man, that the key is what we're going to do in our time of pain. What are we going to do when it's all said and done and we feel like we can't breathe because of what's going on around us? That's what we need to focus on. You can't give up on your dreams and goals. You cannot give up on what God has called you to do. You have to keep on pushing forward. It says in Isaiah 41:10, so do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. I am going to say it again, and I repeat it in every single podcast, I think, that you were created for greatness. whatever you're doing right now, you need to understand that God created you to do something big. Only God is the one who gives you the strength, the courage, and the tenacity and boldness to fight the enemy. Ephesians 3:16 says, I pray that out of his glorious riches, he may strengthen you with power through his spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. And I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power together with all the Lord's holy people to grasp how wide and how long, how high and how deep is the love of Christ. Isn't that what we're looking for right now? And to know this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God. And look at this. There's nothing you can ask for that he will probably give you even more than what you're asking for if you're faithful. Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. He's going to give you more than what you ask for. If you just understand and depend on God and know that your strength comes from him. You know, he talks about giving up your burdens and just giving it to him, and that he will give you rest. And so much that we can do on our own, but we get to the point that God tells us, listen, that's great that you could do that on your own, but if you don't depend on me, you're not going to get further than what you can do.
You are invited into the world of Jinary Arce-Cotto, entrepreneur, influencer, public speaker, and best-selling author. But everyone has a story. Prevail, the process of overcoming, is hers. It's a story of a woman who came from humble beginnings and her daughter who had all the odds stacked against them. But in spite of all of the abuse, shame, infidelity, rape, and misogyny, they found strength through their faith in Jesus Christ to prevail over it all. Available everywhere books, ebooks, and audiobooks are sold in Spanish and in English.
Now, one of the things I realized in my life is that the battle that we're going through is not really ours. The battle is the Lord's. So a lot of the stuff that my mother went through and I write about in this book, it's really horrendous. And honestly, I really didn't write everything she's been through. I really wrote on the surface. And even sometimes people have called me and told me, man, I can't even finish reading this book because of the pain that you portray. I really wrote the surface. I mean, I wrote the truth. I wrote what she wanted me to write, and she gave me the platform and the privilege to write it so that you can know that you can overcome. But it was really the surface of what she went through. And I have to let you know that what made her go through it was her understanding, number one, that prayer was what got her through it. It was being in the presence of God that got her through it. And if you're listening to me today and you don't understand what I'm saying about being in the presence of God, it's having a relationship with God to the point that you study his word, that you open up the word, that you have counsel, that you understand what you're doing, where you're going, because somebody is guiding you to do it, and understand that the battle is not yours. The battle is the Lord. And I want to read these verses, and I want to leave you with this, because when you understand that the battle you're fighting is not a battle of the flesh, is not a battle of your own desires, is a spiritual battle, it makes you open up your eyes and say, wow, you know what? It's easier for me to forgive. It's easier for me to just move forward, because I understand that this attack is not coming from that specific person. This attack is coming straight from the pit of hell. So look at what it says. Finally, in Ephesians 6:10-18, and I'm going to talk about this next week as well, because it's too deep for me not to talk about it, for you to understand that it's so much more than what you think it is. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore, Put on the full armor of God so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you have done everything, to stand. So if you stand, that means you fell, and that's okay as long as you keep on moving forward, as long as you stand. Stand firm then with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. And this is the key right here. This is the key. Don't stop. You got to listen. Finish to the end. And pray in the Spirit on all occasions with all kinds of prayers and requests. With this in mind, be alert and always keep on praying for all the Lord's people. We're going to talk about a little bit about the armor of God. If you haven't given your heart to God, that's the first step. It's confessing that He is Lord. It's confessing that you can't do it without Him, that you give Him all of who you are, that He could write your name in the book of life. But after you have entered into that salvation, you need to understand that life will continue, and that is a continual battle, and that you have to fight for what God already gave you. But the devil is not going to stay home sleeping. He's going to find whatever it is that he needs to find in order to take you away from the destiny that God has already created for you. I pray that the presence of God would be over you. And I pray that you could pray in the Spirit every single day, every single minute. I think it goes down to the minute sometimes, because you could get up, and I've woken up and I'm like, I give you this day, God. I thank you. I'm going to win. Wow. I'm excited. I'm pumped up. I work out. I have the energy. And then all of a sudden something comes, boom, a bomb happens. And you're like, wait a minute. I didn't even see this happening. Sometimes you got to pray unto the minute. That is like, whoa, I got to get this done. I got to depend on God. I got to fight in the Spirit for this, because the devil does not rest. Why are you resting? The devil doesn't rest. Why are you resting? I'm going to leave you with those words. You are a winner. Do not quit. Keep on moving forward. Pain is just temporary, but quitting is forever. I love you all. I pray blessings over you. I pray blessings over your family. I pray blessings over the generations that are to come. I pray that God will guide you. I pray that you can make the right decisions. I pray that He can give you the strength, the peace, the love, and the hope that we are all looking for. God bless you, and talk to you next week. Bye.
Thank you for listening to The Prevail Point with Jinary Arce-Cotto. Order her book Prevail, The Process of Overcoming on Amazon.com or wherever books or audiobooks are sold. We'll see you next time.